Hello everyone, this is going to be my presentation and detailed analysis on the film The Secret Life of Bees. This presentation is only going to be a visual and supplemental guide to the auditory analysis I'm going to be doing. So a little synopsis on the film. The film The Secret Life of Bees is based off a fictitious novel that was based in the 1960s by an author by the name of Sue Monk Kidd, who is also the screenplay writer for the movie as well. The main character is Lily Owens, a young white girl who lives with her abusive father. One day she decides enough is enough, and she leaves with her African-American caretaker, Rosaline. They go to this place called Tyburn that her mother, who has passed away, left on this card, and she was so eager to know why she was there, so she goes to meet this family. This is where she stumbles upon the family of three sisters. Here on the screen we have August, May, and June. And this family takes them in. And throughout the film we get to learn about each one of their lives and, what essentially makes them unique. These worlds collided reveal a lot about the irrationality of racism of the time and the inequality it really inflicted upon everyone. So my primary focus and my primary character focus is Miss May Boatwright. She is obviously one of the three Boatwright sisters, and she's often referred to by everyone else as Miss May. We find out from August very early on. She says that May is special, and the community often thinks she's special, but not in the way that you're thinking. We find out that very early on, May lost her twin sister, April, to suicide when they were teenagers. And we know that May was never the same after that incident. She was never the same. And May is what we consider in today's terms an empath. This means she feels others' feelings and their trauma as if they were her own trauma, as if they were her own feelings. I would consider this to be her tragic flaw, if you will. She feels people's feelings so wholeheartedly and as if they had happened to her. So the first article that I used was Creating Sanctuary from Bloom's critical analysis. In order for Miss May to cope with her personal and psychological trauma, she invents this place called the Wailing Wall. The Wailing Wall is essentially stacked stones, and Miss May goes out there with her paper and her pencil, and when she's feeling overwhelmed or sad or whatever her feeling may be that day, she takes her paper and her pencil and she writes down what she's feeling, or she writes down a prayer for somebody and she stuffs it in the Wailing Wall. And there could not be a more textbook example of creating sanctuary. I mean, Bloom says on her page 12 that it is an environment that promotes healing, and when Miss May slips that piece of paper on the wall, it promotes healing for her. It brings her peace, and she feels that she can move on and be okay. My second one was Berger's critical essay, and he mentions a theory about catastrophe. Oftentimes, trauma is presumed to be some sort of disastrous event or catastrophe. However, we do know that trauma is a cumulative effect. It is something that is brought on over time. And this Miss May's life is a great example of that. She was around 14 when she lost her twin sister, and we can see it very prevalent, very heavy, the escalation of her psychological decline throughout this movie. I mean, it is so apparent. She's getting worse and worse and worse, and things are getting harder for her to handle. And Berger says that maybe we won't feel the full impact until only years later. And in Miss May's case, it's almost decades, or more than a decade later, that she starts to feel these feelings. Alright, and then Miss May's tragic scene. Now, this is the scene that I'm going to be analyzing based off of the character Miss May. So, one day, her godson gets arrested because he is seen in public with a white woman. So he is arrested for that. And she finds out, and she's absolutely distraught. She does what she does. She takes on these feelings of her god sister, and she's like, I just don't know. I can't believe this. And so she's like, I have to go out to the Wailing Wall. So she grabs a piece of paper and a pencil, and she goes out. And she's out there for about 2 hours, and everybody's like, where's Miss May? Where's Miss May? It's been a while. So they go out looking for her, and she's not at the Wailing Wall, and they're looking and looking and looking. And eventually they stumble upon this stream, and Miss May has placed a giant rock on her chest, and she has drowned herself. And everybody's so distraught. They're torn apart, and they're walking back, and they're like, they can't believe this. And they see this piece of paper barely sticking out of the wall. And they pick it up, and it's a note from Miss May, and it says, "It's my time to die, and your time to live. I'm tired of carrying around the weight of the world." And the largest message I wanted to take away from this is that the Wailing Wall is so much more than a wall. It's very symbolic. This note can be translated. It can be translated that how much longer does the black community have to carry around the burden of this racist white culture before it just becomes too much? Just like it became too much for Miss May. So how much longer can this community and African Americans keep dealing with this kind of pressure? This scene analysis. So the book that I chose is Breath, Eyes, Memory. And I know it seems kind of apparent, why I chose Breath, Eyes, Memory, because we do see Martine at the conclusion of the novel kill herself once she becomes pregnant again. She does take her own life. But actually, that's not the reason why I chose this novel, although there is a parallel. When they take place is very telling to me in the analysis. So with Donta Catt's novel, we see at the very end, we are left as the audience to infer what happened or what is going on. And in The Secret Life of Bees, we get to see in the movie, we physically get to see the recoil and the effects that Miss May's suicide has on everyone. And the looks on people's faces that we see is very telling. And you can tell that everyone knows, and they can see that it is the state that this world and that the state and that this nation is in that has caused this impact, because we see it's because Zach got arrested, because he's out in public with a white woman. It is this current turmoil and state of this country that has led to this. My next one is a book by Gary Howard, and I used an excerpt from it. If you don't know, Gary Howard he was once a teacher. He got his master's in education, but he specializes in teaching people how to deal with, multicultural education and what everybody's background means. He lists this theory by Erik Erikson, and it is identity versus identity confusion. And we see this a lot after May's scene in relation to Lily Owens, the main character. After Miss May's death, she kept saying, it's my fault, and she begins to realize it's not when she has this conversation with August. But it's the stigma in society that caused Miss May's death. But what we do see is that she realizes that she loved, Miss May so much. I love Miss May. That it is the stage in her life and how she grew up that created this identity confusion. It doesn't mean that it makes it right or it makes it okay, but at the age that she is at, it is where she comes from that has defined the way she thinks. But that doesn't mean that is who you are. So she is at a state that Gary Howard does, that is identity confusion. It is not her identity, but is an identity confusion, because we can see this evolution in her. Next, I have this. There was an article, and then there was a very compelling chart on the article by Hammermesh, and it is a great visual to explain about the time period. From 1947 to 1967, which is a 30-year span, the average increase was 7 black men committing suicide. So 14 black men per 100,000 people. It's clear the cause due to the time due to when it was from. It was the cruelty and the political unrest. You can see it. I mean, you can see. We know from 1947, 1967, the increase of push for civil rights was increasing, but also the white community was pushing back as well. So this certainly induced lots of people taking their lives, and it's consistent with Miss May's scene. That her godson is arrested for this exact issue, and then Miss May takes her life. My last one, it was a New York Times review, and there was a reporter on the movie The Secret Life of Bees, and what he says in this conclusion really caught my eye. He says, "Black selflessness, in which African Americans take time out of their struggle against oppression to lift the battered self-esteem of white people." And I love this because I was like, oh my gosh, that's an exact image of what we see at the end here with August and Lily Owens. We see this with Queen Latifah's, character. Despite the conditions of the white South and what is going on and how that she's being oppressed, she is dedicating her life to educating Lily's trauma. She tells her that it is not a product of what she believes, but a product of where she comes from. So she tells her, you can see that you love Miss May, so it's not you, it is a product of where you come from, not what you believe. So we do see this idea of black selflessness, a struggle against oppression, to lift the spirits of the whites, even in the midst of what they were going through. So that I thought that very relevant. Here is a picture of my works cited. I'll let you look at that for a second. And then thank you guys so much, and feel free to ask any questions if you may have any. Thank you guys.